Good afternoon and welcome to the regular meeting of the City of Glendale Commission on the Status of Women. Our meetings are now open to the public and can still be viewed on local cable, Charter Cable Channel 6, and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. The meeting can also be viewed online at www.glendaleca.gov by scrolling all the way to the bottom of the page and selecting Live Streaming, which is the third icon from the left. Members of the public are welcome to provide public comments and questions in person or can call in during the meeting at 818-937-8100. City staff will submit these questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person during the Commission on the Status of Women meeting. May I have roll call, please?
Commissioner Brusalian,
Present.
Commissioner Kojayan,
Present.
Commissioner Lambalot,
Present.
Chair Perrion,
Present.
Commissioner Semedjian, ex officio Gonzalez,
Present.
ex officio Roth.
Present.
Next agenda item is 2 regular business agenda, report of recorder regarding the posting of agenda. The agenda for the August 8, 2022 regular meeting of the Commission on the Status of Women was posted on or before August 5, 2022 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. Next agenda item is 3, introduction and presentations. 3A, presentation by the Glendale Police Department.
Okay, would you please join us and come to the front and share your presentation?
Good evening, Commission. My name is Detective Torley. I work for the Glendale Police Department. I currently work for our assaults unit, which deals with primarily anything involving a person as the victim of the crime. So we deal with simple assault, domestic violence, sexual assault, juvenile crimes, things of that nature. So thank you for having me and for allowing us to present on behalf of the police department. I do have a few stats. I know it's been a minute since the police department has been in representation. I think Sergeant Gaxiola last appeared before the commission, I believe it was in 2020. Obviously, COVID has had its effect on everyone societally, so I do apologize in advance. I've only been working on it for 9 months, so I don't have a full scope of things that have transpired since 2020, but I'll do my best to answer any questions that you may have. So to start with, we did get a lot of statistics from one of our crime analysts since 2020, and I'll start with reported incidents of domestic violence. So a few total figures. In the year of 2020, pretty much during the height of COVID, in total, we had 315 reports of domestic violence over the year. In all of 2021, we had 325. So pretty consistent over between 2020 and 2021. In relation to 2022, because we've only gone into August, statistically, in 2020 up until August, there were 181 reports. In 2020, excuse me, that was 2020. In 2021, there was 191, so only an increase of 10. And in this year, 2022, since January until now, we've only had 131, so a 60 report decrease since January to August. So I would imagine that's a significant decline since the years prior. We found that 47% of all assault reports are domestic violence, and the majority of them, a male counterpart is arrested. Bear with me one moment. In all of those domestic violence reports, the vast majority of them involve the arrested party using their hands, feet, elbow, body parts essentially as a mode of weapon. Very, very few have involved knives, firearms, or other types of weapon. Furthermore, so domestic violence arrests, some more totals. So in 2020, in the height of COVID, we had 198 domestic violence arrests. In 2021, only decreased by 197 arrests. To compare that to 2020, From January to August of 2020, we had 119 arrests. In 2021, we had 107, so a slight decrease. And this year, from January to August, 81 arrests. So, and again, another decline from the 2 years prior to that. In 2020, 67% of those arrested were male. In 2021, 71%, and so far this year, 74%. So across that statistic, it's been fairly average, no considerable changes. As far as domestic calls for service, so that would expand the scope of search for domestic disturbance. So in Glendale, or all of the state of California, but especially in Glendale, we take domestic violence very seriously. If there's any call for service by a neighbor or within the home that would appear to be some type of domestic disturbance, we would document it thoroughly in a police report, and God forbid if anything escalates, we have somewhat of a paper trail to document history within family homes. So in 2020, throughout the year, we had 194 domestic calls for service. In 2021, a slight uptick, 212. From the months of January through August, in 2020, we had 113. In 2020, increased by 114. So far this year, 89. So again, common thread with everything else, a slight decrease. And then lastly, for reported sexual assaults, more specifically the crime of rape, not all sexual assaults. In 2020, we had 14 reports. In the year, the months between January and August, we had 8. In 2021, it was increased by 1. We had 15 for the year, 8 through August, and so far this year, we've also had 8. So fairly low numbers considering the state of society, but 8 across the board from January through August. Again, I have a narrow scope. I've only been with the unit since November, so I don't know what the caseload was for detectives that were working in 2020 and 2021. But based on the numbers, it would suggest a decrease. I would imagine with society opening up a little bit more, people not staying home as much or working from home as much, that might have resolved some issues and some tensions from within the home, and might explain some of the reasons for decrease in reporting arrests and incidents altogether. Again, I only being with the unit for 9 months, if I don't have an answer for you, I'd be happy to jot it down and ask either my partners or my supervisor, and I'd be glad to provide you a more thorough answer if I don't know it now. But that's all I have as far as statistics and presentation-wise.
Thank you very much for that presentation. And at this point, I'd like to ask any of the commissioners if you have questions.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I have a question. These reports for assault, are they through a 911 call, or what's the percentage for the 911 call versus a mental health issue that the person's having and a breakdown or something like that?
That's a great question. I don't know if our crime analysts would be able to, I'm sure they might be able to filter through that somewhat. I would, well, let me start with, so we have a new, I guess, technology, I guess you could say. In addition to just a standard 911, somebody calling either 911 or the non-emergency line to report something, we also have implemented, you can text 911. So recently, I think it was a week or two ago, I had a domestic violence case that stemmed from a text 911 call. The victim got in an altercation with her significant other, and she was an immigrant from another country. She wasn't totally aware of how things work in not only the United States, but in California. She didn't know what to do. And so she was able to text 911 saying that she had gotten in an altercation with her significant other. The dispatcher on the other end was able to communicate with her and find out where she was at. She was, because of a language barrier, there was a little bit of difficulty finding exactly where she was, but officers were able to get there, contact her, and make sure that she was safe and handle the investigation appropriately just through text space. I will say that because the nature of the reports that we get assigned, essentially nothing gets closed without an investigator looking at it and determining what, if anything, needs to happen. So we do see quite a bit of domestic disturbance calls, so not necessarily where somebody is arrested or where a crime was committed, but whether it be a verbal altercation or basically anything other than a crime. I don't know. I would say, as an estimate, maybe 1 out of 10 is something from within the home stemming from a mental health issue where it kind of difficult to determine whether the person that assaulted or argued with their family member, if it was intentional because they weren't getting along or they were upset at them, or if it was because of a mental health issue that caused this to happen. Personally, I've had one very recent where that was the exact case. A family member had some mental health issues. They ended up getting into a physical altercation with their elderly parents. Ultimately, officers decided that this was more of a mental health crisis than an actual assault, and the person that ultimately assaulted their parents got placed on a mental health hold, taken to the hospital. The family was provided resources, and the crime still got documented in a report, but the officers at the time felt it was more prudent to deal with the mental health issue because it seemed like that was the stem of the problem. So I'm sure there's a way that our statisticians could separate that, but I'm not sure of a specific statistic on how many incidents are rooted from mental health issues.
So are all officers trained to decipher between a mental health maybe breakdown versus an actual intentional assault? Yes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we do yearly, if not more frequently, department-wide training on mental health issues, growing trends, resources that we can provide. We also have a unit within our department that works with our community outreach, where an officer is specifically paired with a mental health clinician. And so not only do they respond to calls for service that are actively going on, but they also do quite a bit of follow-up. So again, personally, I've had several cases where somebody, like the exact case that I mentioned, where the involved parties seem to have mental health issues. I can then refer that case to the officer and the clinician that work in that department, and they can go do follow-up, see if there's other resources to provide. Again, the police officers are not doctors, so occasionally there might be an issue where somebody needs mental health help, but our hands are kind of tied to the Wealth and Institution Code. So we might not be able to put that person on a hold, but when the clinician comes, because they are a doctor and trained in mental health, they have a little more broad of a scope on their abilities. And so I know they're very active in assisting our officers when they are on duty.
Okay, thank you.
Ex officio Roth?
So I know you've been talking about how your department's obviously collecting statistics and stuff, and I was just curious if your department had any statistics, or if you had them, or maybe could ask for them, on how many of the cases do go unreported. Are we to assume that this is maybe a larger percent, or are we dealing with a more widespread problem that we're not aware of?
I don't know if we would be able to have that statistic. I'm sure either nationally or by the state, I'm sure there's studies that would record what they believe are unreported incidents. It is a very common trend that that's one of the questions that we ask in any domestic violence incident. We have essentially a list of, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 questions. What's the status of your living relationship? Do you live together? How long have you been together? And one of those standardized questions is, has there been previous incidents? And if so, were they reported or unreported? And so we do find there is a significant portion that report that they have had incidents that they did not report. And then based on the scenario and the situation, like, for example, if it was a domestic disturbance where there was no crime that night, but they reported a previous incident where there was violence, if it was in the relatively near future or near past, I would imagine an officer would do a thorough investigation on that. And if it was prudent, continue on with that investigation and possibly make an arrest if they thought that there was probable cause to do so. But we do find that there is a pretty significant amount of people who admit that they've had prior incidents that go unreported.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ex officio Gonzalez?
So I'm not sure if you would have this statistic, or maybe we could, ask another person in the department. But how many calls would you say, if any, are made by a party not experiencing the assault? So children, other family, or friends?
I might have that one. Bear with me one second. Let me look through here. That is a good one. So again, in addition to, the traditional 911, non-emergency, and now text 911, a decent amount are called from, by a neighbor, or a third party, a bystander, or a passerby. If I don't have that statistic, I would definitely inquire for you, but bear with me one second while I take a look. So they don't break it down by involved party calling or an additional observer, so I will inquire on that, but they did throw the statistic of arrests made from calls from the public versus an officer observing the incident firsthand, which was 1%. So not very often do officers observe that, but apparently it has happened. But I will inquire about that, and I'd be happy to provide that once I get the answer.
Anybody else? I have a quick question myself, and how do the Glendale statistics for domestic violence compare with other cities? Mainly I'm thinking of maybe Pasadena or Burbank, if you have that idea.
I don't. I think that would be
Okay.
another one, and that would probably be where our crime analysts would have to reach out to the crime analysts at those police departments and compare numbers. But I can definitely inquire and see how we compare to some comparable cities. I don't have any speculation on whether it'd be similar or a drastic difference, but I definitely will inquire about that one.
Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry? Okay, Commissioner Buscellian?
Hi, this 911, text 911, I've never heard of it. I don't know if anybody else has, but why isn't it being advertised more? I mean, what if someone's locking themselves in the closet and, they don't want their voice to be heard, which is great. I mean, when did this begin? And
That's a great question. I know it's been around for several months, if not at least 6 or longer. That's a good question. I'm not sure why it isn't more drastically advertised. I know that I've personally received several incidences where it was a 911 text. We've also, they're a little more few and far between, but we've had instances where somebody called 911 and either hid the phone under a seat or in their purse and just kind of left the line open. So the dispatchers could hear that there was a struggle or something going on. And then our dispatchers are pretty good about trying to triangulate where this might be off of cell towers and what information they can have. But specifically about text 911, I'm not sure how long it's been around. I know it's been around for several months, if not a year or longer. But I will reach out to our dispatch center and see if they have some more definitive answers on how long we've had it and why it's not more widely known.
yeah, and how many questions do they ask? Hopefully it's just your name, your address, and why you're texting, right? I mean, there shouldn't be a whole list of questions for you to ask while texting because you have limited time.
Yeah, absolutely. I ended up getting a transcript from the incident that I was telling you about, and the text back and forth was very similar to the way a phone conversation would be. Because time is of the essence and a lot of important information needs to get extracted as fast as possible. The questions are very direct. Like, where are you? Are you in danger right now? Like, it's again, the same thing they would ask over the phone. In reading the transcript, it was very similar to the 911 calls that I've listened to in the past. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kajayan?
Thank you. Thank you for this informative information. I have a question. How many % this incident happened at COVID time you receive the person when they are working from home, domestic violence?
I mean, that's another great question. I don't know if we would be able to quantify that one. At the end, from 2019 through 2020 and 2021, when the majority of the public was working from home and telecommuting, clearly, as you can see, just from January to August, the decline that we've had in 2022, I think speaks volumes about how many people probably were in that situation and working from home. Unfortunately, that wasn't one of our standardized questions that we ask, is this because you guys are working from home or spending more time at home? But I would imagine that's a major contributor to why the statistics were much higher than they were in the year 2022.
Thank you.
Ms. Powers?
Yes, Chair Perry and members of the commission, it looks like there was a state law that was passed and implemented January 1st of 2021 for text 911.
Oh.
And seeing as to how some of you aren't aware of it, we can pass that information along to our social media folks in the police department and citywide and make sure we push that information out to the community
That would be
as a
wonderful.
reminder.
I didn't know either. Thank you for raising that question. Thank you. And thank you for your prompt follow-up. Okay, anybody else? No? Well, thank you. Next item on the agenda?
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Next item on the agenda is oral comment. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. The commission may question, respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or discussion. Staff may refer the matter to the proper department for investigation and report. And at this time, we do not have any callers on the line.
Okay, all right. Well, then, thank you for that. And next item on the agenda, please?
Next agenda item is 5 consent items. 5A, approval of the minutes of the special commission meeting held on May 9, 2022.
Okay, may I have a motion for this item?
I will move to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I second it.
Roll call, please?
Commissioner Brusalian,
Yes.
Commissioner Kojayan,
Yes.
Commissioner Lambalot,
Yes.
Commissioner Semedjian, and Chair Perrion.
Yes.
The motion passed. The next agenda item is 6 action items. 6A is selection of commission officers. 1, motion to select chair for the term of August 2022 to August 2023. 2, motion to select vice chair for the term of August 2022 to August 2023.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Powers, could you please provide us with an overview of the procedure for the selection?
Certainly, Chair Perry and members of the commission, the chair may open the floor for nominations for position of chair. And then once all the nominations are received from commissioners, the chair will close the floor to nominations. You don't need a second for any nominations. In order to be selected as chair, a minimum of 3 affirmative votes is required. And then once the chair is selected, the process may be repeated for selection of vice chair, and the new officers can take their new seats once both selections are complete.
Okay, thank you. Nominations are now open for the position of the chair.
I'd like to nominate Diane Lamblot for chair.
I second it.
Are there any other nominations? Okay. All right. So we'll close it and proceed to voting for Commissioner Lambalot as chair.
We have Commissioner Brusalian,
Yes.
Commissioner Kojayan,
Yes.
Commissioner Lambalot,
Yes.
Commissioner
Semerjian.
Semedjian, and Chair Perrion.
Yes.
The motion has passed.
Okay. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Okay. Next item is the vice chair. Okay. So nominations are now open for position of vice chair.
I would like to nominate Commissioner Kajayan as vice chair.
I'll second.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Are
We close.
open for voting now?
Sure.
Okay.
Commissioner Brusalian,
Yes.
Commissioner Kojayan,
Yes.
Commissioner Perrin,
Yes.
Commissioner Semerjian, and Chair Lambalot.
Yes.
Motion has passed.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Yes.
don't we have to move
Yes.
now?
To physically move.
Yes, I think
Or
so.
you can stay there if you'd prefer, but traditionally, we physically move.
Yes, we move. That's fine. Congratulations.
Commissioner Kojayan is leaving the meeting.
Do we need to note on the record that Commissioner Kajayan left, had to leave? All right, thank you, fellow commissioners. Next item on the agenda, please.
Next item on the agenda is item 6B, Domestic Violence Awareness Month, DVAM activities. One, motion approving DVAM activities.
Thank you. Ms. Powers, could we have a report on that?
Yes, Chair Lambalot, members of the commission, over the years, the CSW has organized DVAM activities to raise awareness of domestic violence and to help prevent and eliminate violence within the city of Glendale. This year, there are 4 items for your consideration. The first is the traditional proclamation for the Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Glendale, and this would be requested on behalf of the commission to the mayor and city council to have October designated as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This could be presented as early as Tuesday, September 27th, here in council chambers at a council meeting. Traditionally, the chair accepts the proclamation on behalf of the commission, and all available commissioners have been present. This year, since meetings are now being held in person, Chair Lambalot, you may attend, and anyone else from the commission can come and attend alongside. The next item for consideration that is coupled with the proclamation is the Purple Light Nights request, and this is for the past couple years, the commission has participated in the Purple Light Nights campaign. This was a campaign started by the Covington Domestic Violence Task Force in 2006 to provide awareness education to the community and business leaders, promoting healthy relationships while giving support to victims of domestic violence. Purple, as you know, is the symbolic color of domestic violence, and as such, it's the campaign's goal to see purple lights shining across the country, on porch lights and business windows. The City of Glendale and the Commission on the Status of Women can participate by lighting City Hall in purple lights throughout the month of October, and by lighting City Hall in purple, the city can provide an opportunity to develop public awareness of domestic violence issues and build on healthy relationships. The third event for your consideration is the annual Purple Tie Awards that the Glendale YWCA partners with the Commission on the Status of Women to provide. They've expressed interest in partnering again for the 4th annual Purple Tie Awards. This award was created to honor men in the community who work to support domestic violence survivors and work towards the elimination of violence against women and families in Glendale. Similar to last year, the event will be held on the front steps of City Hall on Thursday, October 27 at 6 p.m. After welcoming remarks by city leaders, the YWCA, and the Commission, the awardees will be honored, and the event will end with the lighting of City Hall in purple lights. The YWCA has asked that the Commission help cover costs by sponsoring the cost of the awards that will be given to the honorees, as well as any staffing costs associated with the setup for this event, which should not exceed $500. And finally, this is one that is a different request that the Commission hasn't received in the past and hasn't participated in, is a request to co-sponsor a virtual screening and panel discussion. This request came from the Armenian Bar Association's Domestic Violence Committee, which has come before the Commission and made a presentation believe earlier this year or last year. They'd like to co-sponsor a virtual screening of a documentary titled "And So I Stayed." This documentary chronicles the lives of incarcerated survivors of domestic violence who fight back against the system that disbelieves them. They would like to screen this film in October as part of Domestic Violence Awareness Month and have a panel discussion that follows the screening, including a survivor advocate. They are also reaching out to other organizations to request co-sponsorship, including but not limited to the New York Women's Bar Association's Domestic Violence Committee, Women's Bar Association of the State of New York's Domestic Violence Committee, and New York City Bar Association's Domestic Violence Committee. They would like to market the screening to audiences on both the East and West Coasts. They have many members on the East Coast, but the members of the committee are primarily on the West Coast. And given that the Armenian Bar Association has a strong presence here and in Glendale specifically, they wanted to reach out to the commission to partner on this event. The goal of the screening is to show the powerful and stark consequences of domestic violence, which affect all communities, and the panel discussion will also bring to light how domestic violence impacts the Armenian community as well. Although the expenses have not been identified for the entire event, they do anticipate a minimum cost of $6,700. Of that, $5,700 would cover a virtual screening for up to 400 attendees. They are also attempting to book a formerly incarcerated survivor advocate to participate as a panelist, which will include speaker fees. If it's okay, Chair Lambelat, members of the commission, we'd like to show a brief trailer for this screening that just would help provide you with some context to it. It's under 2 minutes. I would, before we do show the screening, I would like to provide a content warning as the trailer mentions physical and sexual abuse as well as death. It doesn't depict any of these things, but it does mention it. So anyone who wants to step out or tune out can come back in 2 minutes and join. So we give it a second. Okay. Is it okay to proceed?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
I always felt like I had this big old scarlet letter on my forehead. I was that girl that shot that guy in front of that house.
In the U.S. alone, an estimated 1 in 4 women is victim of severe physical abuse.
Should someone who suffered repeated abuse be given leniency in a court of law?
Unfortunately, a crime is a crime.
911 today.
We never compare the women who die with the women who kill.
26-year-old Tanisha Davis is facing murder charges in the death of her boyfriend.
Is that really what we're asking of women, that they don't fight back?
Nicole Adamondo shot and killed her longtime boyfriend after years of physical and sexual abuse and torture.
Would it have been better if she died?
Nikki is not the only woman in this country who have survived horrific abuse and are now criminalized in a system that can often mirror the coercive control of an abuser.
Can I just ask you why you decided on the verdict?
No comment.
The criminal justice system is not set up for these kinds of cases. It's almost like stepping back in time.
What if they don't even remember me when they get to see me?
The system is broken. These are moms, these are wives, these are sisters, these are daughters.
What will it take to believe him?
You could have killed Nikki. I'm still not free.
Thank you, Ms. Powers. Before we open these items to discussion, I had a question. Obviously, we'll discuss them one by one. Can we then make a motion? Or do we have to make for each one, like accept or not accept, or do we have to make a motion for all 4 alternatives?
Chair Lambelat, what we can do is take the feedback of the commission, and once there's consensus, we can combine it all into one motion.
Okay.
Before you begin, I would like to mention that Ariana Chavez has joined us remotely on behalf of the YWCA, in case you have any questions for the YWCA. And Anahit Ugurlayan is here from the Armenian Bar Association's Domestic Violence Committee, she's joining us from the East Coast. So they are on standby to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for the representatives from the Y or the Armenian Bar Association?
So I have a question for the YWCA representative. I was just curious specifically about the Purple Tie Awards. So is the award only limited to those who are males, or how does the award work and why is that chosen to be that way? I'm just curious.
Hi. So it is more for males. It's the males in our community who help our community with domestic violence. So we're still working on the nominations. So I know we have like a community advocate award. We also have like a police and I believe also a clergy award. And then there's a few more nominations that we are still thinking about. And once Tara Peterson, our CEO, comes back from sabbatical, we'll have more of a concrete list of nominations or list of awards and the awardees.
Okay, so you're saying it's not limited necessarily to just males, but often is awarded?
It is for males, for the males in our community who have helped our community and are survivors of domestic violence.
Okay, I see. And then do we have a similar, I know you mentioned that there are other awards for different community members, but do we have a matching award that goes with it for females too, or is it just gender limited? I'm sorry, I know I'm kind of stuck on this. I'm just really curious.
No, I would have to circle back with Tara Peterson and see if we are going to have an award for non-males.
Yes, Ms.
Sorry,
Powers.
if I may, ex officio Roth, if it helps, I think the reason that the Purple Tie Awards honor men is because a lot of times domestic violence is seen as a women's issue, and it's a lot of women are the ones who deal with it, are there to support the victims, and so this was a way to honor men, uplift the ones, hold them up kind of as a thank you and as an encouragement for all men to take this problem seriously and to help step up and combat domestic violence. Okay. The YWCA also does other types of awards. I believe they're going to do one, I think it's April,
early
I believe.
October.
There's one in October, and then they also would, I think you combine that, right? It's the breakfast now. And they honor women in the community, not necessarily just for domestic violence, but just amazing women in the community.
Okay, I think I was just concerned because for some reason when I read the proposal, I almost saw it as look, gold star for helping. I guess I thought the event was centered towards women and domestic violence towards women, but now I have an understanding of, okay, so we're trying to especially highlight male domestic violence or
male support of domestic violence victims, who are, sort of taken for granted, I think, a lot of times.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions on the for the YWCA representatives? I actually had a question. I assume that the Purple Tie Awards will pretty much mirror what's been done in the past.
Yes.
And it's a fairly new award, right? Isn't it just a few years old?
Yes, I believe it's about 3 or 4 years old. Tara Peterson our CEO, is the one that implemented the Purple Tie Award. So we still do kind of like our candlelight vigil that we used to do years past, but we incorporate with our candlelight vigil, we also incorporate the Purple Tie Awards.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful event. So if you haven't attended, especially the student ex officios, you should try to attend. Any other questions or discussion on the Purple Light Nights or the Purple Tie Awards? What about on the Proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Glendale?
Is the date okay with everyone?
I assume, yeah. Okay. I assume we'll make a motion saying that we want to move forward with that. And so now I guess we need to discuss the Armenian Bar Association request. And I have a question about that too, Ms. Powers. I know there's a later request for funds from GUSD.
Yes.
So I assume that's appropriate to mention that now so we can weigh that in conjunction with this.
Certainly. So there's two requests. Usually you don't even get one request, but in one night you get two requests for funding expenditures.
Okay.
And the commission has a healthy fund balance of over $70,000.
So just to be aware, presumably you've read the materials, there is another request for funding for $3,200 by the GUSD. If you want to take that into account in your vote on these items, the $500 for the Purple Tie Awards or I guess it's staffing costs, right? I don't know if it comes directly
The
from
physical
us.
awards, and then just some minimal staffing costs, like covering hourly costs for park staff to set up, provide the AV, and then to break down.
Okay, and then the request for funds for the screening of the And So I Stayed film.
And
So,
I'm sorry, and Chair Lambelout, members of the commission, just to make it clear, the request isn't for necessarily the full balance, it's just to provide the costs of the event to you, to let
Okay.
you know that there are other co-sponsors, and for the commission to proceed appropriately.
great, okay, great. All right, so does anyone have any questions for the representative from the Armenian Bar Association? Commissioner Brasilian?
Hi, I'd like to know, so primarily we're in the West Coast, the Armenian domestic violence. It's primarily on the West Coast. The members are primarily on the West Coast, but we're reaching out to the East Coast committees also. Do we have any donations from them yet, or are we just in the preliminary? Are we still in the preliminaries for this, for asking for the money to cover the screening?
Yes, so this is really very preliminary stages right now. What I did was, first reach out to committees for possible co-sponsorship of an event, including, possibly this screening, not knowing the costs. And then I reached out to the producer of the film, who then explained what those costs were. And so it's really the very beginning stages in terms of requests for funds. And as mentioned, certainly whatever the commission is willing to provide would be very much appreciated.
So this is supposed to be in October? Am I right about that also?
Yes.
So we need to gather the funds before that to actually have the virtual screening. And we have an approximate amount of $6,700. What if you don't meet that amount? What happens if everybody doesn't contribute enough?
I think what we'll do is, use our best efforts, certainly also within the Armenian Bar Association, to see if there is funding. So I think we can work to get the funding, but obviously I can't, promise anything. It really depends on the budgets of other committees and any other funding we can secure.
Any other questions?
And do we have ideas about the other committees' budgets? Do we have ideas about what their budgets might be that they may contribute?
I don't specifically. I do know, having been, I was co-chair of the Consumer Affairs Committee of the New York City Bar many years ago, and I know that, budgets tend to be, on the small side. It depends on the committee, and that's just the New York City Bar. However, I would like to get more information from the committees with respect to funding. It's sort of, we're going in pieces because I wasn't sure about how much the screening would be. So this is sort of the first step, but I think that combined, we should be able to get the funding that we need.
And how many organizations have you reached out to approximate? Oh, sorry. How many organizations have you reached out to gather all the funds?
So as I mentioned, I've only initially reached out to the bar associations with respect to possible sponsorship. I haven't gotten into details with respect to actual ability to fund it, because I just found out about the cost of the screening. So it's sort of going in steps. But I once I find out more from the commission, I will certainly reach out to them to get more information on their ability to contribute.
Thank you.
Any other questions before I ask a couple?
Go ahead.
Okay. I had a couple of questions. One is it a fairly recent film?
Yes, it's from last year, I believe.
Okay. And I assume the screening would be somewhere in Glendale. Is that what you're proposing, or anticipating, or hoping?
So this would be a virtual screening so that we can reach East and West Coast audiences.
Great, I missed that, sorry. Okay.
No worries.
And I assume that any organization, including the commission, if we did provide a grant or some funds, we would be recognized as a sponsor?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, any other questions at this point? Yes, Student Officio Gonzalez?
So is this an event that you're planning on doing in years to come, or is it just something that's just for 2022 and then it's never going to happen again? Or if it does happen in the future, will it be a different film that's being showed?
I think we will do different events for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. You know, we're a pretty new committee. We just started in 2020, so this would be our first event during Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And the idea is to have an event every October. So whether it's a screening or a discussion or a book presentation, we certainly want to do something along these lines every year.
All right, thank you.
Question?
Actually, not really a question, but just based on the input and everybody else's question, I'd like to propose, and I understand that, you know, we don't have much time to think about this since this is planned for October, but I'd like to propose that perhaps as a commission, we consider becoming co-sponsors to this event, and just to throw out a dollar amount, I would say anyway, you know, $500 to $1,000. I would be comfortable with that, because I think this is a good way of reaching out to everybody, and it is an important aspect of domestic violence is, you know, the incarceration of the very women who have to endure it. So that would be my suggestion to the commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Perrion. Ms. Powers, if it's okay with you, I would just like to go down the 4 proposals and just assume we're, you know, make sure we're all on the same page. And okay. So for the proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I think there was no discussion. Does anybody not want to approve that? Okay, Purple Nightlight, same question. Is everybody good with that, or anybody? No no's, okay. Purple Tie Awards. Again, that cost is $500, and I know it is a moving event, I think. Everybody okay with that? Gives us a chance to be a sponsor as well. Okay, and then so the virtual screening panel, a discussion of the movie, I personally agree with Commissioner Perry, and I would propose $1,000 contingent on the fact that it actually happens, the event happens, and if it doesn't happen, then we would have the opportunity to give it to the Armenian Bar Association for some other reason. You know, if they request it, in other words, they'd have to request it again. It wouldn't just be a grant to them, it would be for this program.
Understood.
Okay. Any other thoughts, any other discussions? No? Okay, so guess we need a motion then.
So just to summarize all of this, the commission would like to proceed with the proclamation as presented in the report, along with the request to light City Hall in purple and participate in the Purple Night Lights campaign, participate in the Purple Tie Awards alongside the YWCA, and provide an amount not to exceed of $500 for the awards, and also serve as a co-sponsor with the Armenian Bar Association's Domestic Violence Committee for the virtual screening with an amount of $1,000 contingent on the event actually happening.
Yes,
If someone would
that's
like
how-
to make that motion.
We need a motion?
To move it. Thank you.
We have roll call, please?
I'll
Oh, sorry.
second,
We
I'll
need a
second the
second.
motion.
Thank you.
Roll call, please?
Commissioner Brusalian,
Yes.
Commissioner Kojayan, Commissioner Perrian,
Yes.
Commissioner Samijian, and Chair Lambalot.
Yes.
Motion is passed.
Next item on the agenda, please.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 6C, appointment of selection committee for the 2022 to 2023 student ex officio members. 1, motion appointing 2 commissioners and 1 student ex officio to the selection committee. 2, motion appointing 2 current student ex officios for additional term through August 2023.
Ms. Powers, could you provide just a brief report on this?
Yes, very briefly, Commissioner Lambalot, members of the commission. So as you know, annually, the commission appoints 2 student ex officio members concurrent with the academic calendar. These are students who are either a junior in high school or above, including higher education, and either live in Glendale or go to school in the area served by the Glendale Unified School District in order to serve as a member. The commission by precedent establishes a student ex officio selection committee, which screens and selects the incoming student ex officio commissioners every year. At this time, staff recommends that the commission either establish the 22-23 selection committee to select the next 2 student ex officio members, or alternatively, the commission can consider reappointing the current student ex officios for another term through August 2023. This hasn't been done before, but given that the commission meets quarterly, the students have expressed interest, they're getting active and working on certain things. This is something that was requested, and so it is before the commission for consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Powers. I think we'd like to hear from the student ex officios and an assurance that you would have time to continue and to, I think, the pandemic limited, what could be done, but I think, there's, I think, an activity at each of your schools that involves the commissioner we could sponsor, I think would be great to be talked about later, but we would like to hear from you before we consider that alternative, please.
Sorry. So actually, I've talked to Mrs. Powers about this, but I'm working on a project right now. I have the printouts. It has to go through the, I'll pass this down the line, through the Arts Library Commission first for it to go through, but basically, I'm working on a project at the Glendale Library to work on empowerment for girls in the community. Because I have a little brother and obviously all of his friends get together, and I feel like we could definitely use some programs for that in our community. So I'm working on a project called Supergirl Sundays, which basically would be at the library every other Sunday. I'd come, or maybe other people working on the project, and we'd read a girl empowerment book and then do a project based on it. And if you look under examples, I have some books and activities listed. I'd probably do about, what did I write? 3 months, so that's 6 sessions. I would be requesting funding for it, but we did talk about moving that potentially. The proposal would come during the November meeting, not this meeting, just because it does have to go through the library committee. But I honestly have learned so much from being on the commission, and it's really inspired me to take part in my community. And I joined Associate Student Body this year, and I'm just really excited to get more involved in the community, so I would really appreciate another term with you guys moving forward. But thank you.
Thank you.
And like ex officio Roth, I am also very passionate about the commission. I've definitely learned a lot about city government. And I have recently started working on an ad hoc for the, to kind of, to start a program in the schools to basically, convey the message that hands and words are for supporting and not for hurting others. And I also was thinking of starting a program at my school this year, which is Glendale High School, for empowering girls. I know that some of the lower school or the elementary schools and some of the middle schools in Glendale have Girls on the Run, and I've joined that in the past. And I find that to be a very empowering thing personally for me as a woman. So I would like to continue that at GHS. And yes, I've just learned a lot during this opportunity, and I would very much appreciate another term. Thank you.
Thank you both. Any questions, discussion? So we have the various alternatives that were set out, which basically come down to accepting applications and interviewing people or appointing the current student ex officios for another term. And that's alternative 3, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if you would look at the alternatives, and if somebody would like to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint the 2 current ex officios, student ex officios, for an additional term through August of '23.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brusalian?
Yes.
Commissioner Kojarian? Commissioner Perrion?
Yes.
Commissioner Sarmigian? And Chair Lambalot?
Yes.
The motion has passed.
Congratulations. Student ex officio Roth and Gonzalez. We look forward to working with you, hopefully more actively this year now that we're not in the pandemic at least anymore. Okay, next item on the agenda, please.
Next item on the agenda is 6D, consideration discussion of sponsorship of Glendale Unified School District Yellow Ribbon Week, Hands and Words Are Not for Hurting project. 1, motion approving DVAM activities.
I'm sorry. I apologize. We're going to read the, it's a motion providing direction on the sponsorship request. I apologize for the typo.
Could we have a report, please, Ms. Powers?
Yes. So Yellow Ribbon Week is the 3rd week of January, set aside by the Glendale Unified School District to raise awareness regarding violence and prevention efforts in their schools. And Yellow Ribbon Week concurrently runs with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. So this year, that's January 16 through 20 of 2023. The Hands and Words Are Not for Hurting project is actually a nonprofit organization that is located in Salem, Oregon, and was founded in 1997. The mission of the Hands and Words Project is to educate people in the community about their moral and legal right to live free of abuse and violence. And it includes a pledge that's taken by participants that states that they will not use their hands and words for hurting themselves or others, and a reminder to always ask for help. So a little bit of history. For 8 years, from 2016 to 2013, the Commission partnered with the Glendale Unified School District to bring the Hands and Words Project's anti-violence program into the district's curriculum during Yellow Ribbon Week. Historically, the Commission would allocate anywhere from $3,500 to $4,000 each year towards the purchase of materials for the program, such as buttons, stickers, vinyl banners that the schools would display and give out during Yellow Ribbon Week. So students and staff became accustomed to incorporating the slogan and its intent as part of the week dedicated to nonviolence and promoting peaceful, respectful ways of interacting and supporting one another. The founder of the Hands and Words Project, Ann Kelly, had reached out to see if the school district would be interested in resurrecting this project at their schools. The GUSD administration indicated that they are interested in continuing the Hands and Words Project this year, would love to have a tangible message of nonviolence to bring into the schools, and did request that this longtime partnership with the commission be renewed. The administration has indicated that all 30 schools would participate in the project. They are requesting silicone wristbands, stickers, window decals, and brochures. The wristbands and stickers would be distributed to students at all schools. The window decals would go up in the windows at the administration offices, and the programs, the brochures would be in the offices of all the administration schools for parents and even faculty and staff to learn about the program. Based on the materials requested, the amount of the sponsorship would be $3,030.50, and so to account for any unforeseen expenses that may arise, staff recommends that the commission, should they consider this request, allocate an amount not to exceed of $3,200 to the Glendale Unified School District, should you decide to support the request. And that concludes the report. I'd be happy to answer any questions. We unfortunately don't have a representative from the school district because the timing is such that school is about to start and they're exceedingly busy at this time. So
Sure.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Understood. Any questions, discussion?
I have a question for Ms. Powers. How much did we spend last year on this activity? Do we know?
Oh, that's a good question. So this hasn't come back to the commission since 2013. So this would be, should the commission choose to support this, it would be resurrecting an old program of the commission's that ran for several years.
So obviously, inflation.
Inflation, they did request, so as mentioned, it was anywhere from $3,500 to $4,000 is what they usually spent. They did request slightly less materials, just to not over-request and to see how it's received.
Yeah.
And then it's something that they can revisit next year if they want to expand it or keep it the same. But that's why the cost is lower, even though we're almost 10 years out from the last time.
Wow, okay, thank you.
I have a quick question. Would this cover at all the Glendale high schools only, or all schools? How far-reaching would this cost be?
That's a good question. Vice Chair Perry, and they indicated that they would do this in all the schools.
Junior high and
Junior
high school?
high, high school, and elementary school.
It says that there. I'm sorry, I missed that. Thank you.
There's a lot of it.
Thank you.
Ms. Powers, a couple of questions. Would we be the sole sponsor?
Yes.
Okay.
This has always been a Commission on the Status of Women and GUSD partnership.
Okay. I think it's a terrific idea and tangible, which is what I like about it. Would we be credited with being a sponsor, or if not by the school, I assume maybe in City Connections there could be a paragraph or something about it, just something so that we can raise the awareness of the commission and what we're doing?
Certainly, there's a couple ideas there. Chair Lambalot, members of the commission. So one thing is that we could put something in City Connections. We can also ask the school district if they do any social media to credit the commission. And additionally, we can coordinate perhaps representatives from the commission speaking at a GUSD board meeting to talk about this program and bringing this program perhaps in January when the program's about to start, to talk about it then.
That's great. I think it would, I mean, obviously it's not practical to put anything on the materials themselves, I'm sure, but I think that, it would raise awareness of the commission if we're spending, money. I think that, that's a good thing to be recognized, not for the sake of that, but just again, to raise our profile and become, more visible in the community. And I think that's a great idea for members of the commission or representatives to speak. Great idea. Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Would someone like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we sponsor the full amount of $3,200.
I will second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Broussalian,
Yes.
Commissioner Perrin,
Yes.
Chair Lambalot.
Yes,
Motion is passed.
thank you. Next item on the agenda, please.
Next item is 6E, next steps for Commission on the Status of Women's Strategic Plan. 1, motion to note and file.
Ms. Powers, could you explain what this is?
Certainly. This is simply an update to the commission on the strategic plan and its next steps. It's a note. It's listed as a note and file in case the commission does have additional feedback to provide. And if not, if the commission's okay with the report as presented, we can simply note and file. So as you know, the current strategic plan, which covers the period from 2019 to 22, is set to expire at the end of this year. And as such, at a previous meeting, the Strategic Development Ad Hoc Committee was formed, which is comprised of Commissioner Perrin, Chair Lambalot, and ex officios Gonzalez and Greer to review the current strategic plan and work with staff to identify future strategic aims and goals and draft a new strategic plan. So the ad hoc committee will work over the course of this month and next month to draft this plan. And once drafted, the commission can hold a public meeting to obtain feedback on the draft plan. This public meeting would be open to anyone in the community, and there would be invitations sent to key stakeholders and partners of the commission who serve women and girls in the community, such as representatives from the YWCA, Sir Optimist International, Essentia, Armenian Relief Society, our local schools, and our 3 area hospitals. And I'm sure there are more, but those are the ones that come to mind now. Just for them to review the plan, understand, have a brief overview of how the commission works, what's under the commission's purview, present the draft plan, and then obtain feedback. And then that feedback can be taken by the ad hoc committee and possibly update the draft before it comes back to the commission for final approval. That's
Any
the update.
questions or discussion? I have a couple of questions, Ms. Powers. With the public meeting, it would not be an actual CSW meeting. It would be a separate public meeting.
I apologize. So it would be like a public community meeting, not a public meeting of the Commission on the Status of Women.
Okay.
So staff would run the presentation. Members of the commission can certainly be there to hear the feedback. But it would be like a community outreach meeting we have on different projects, different initiatives, things like that.
Okay. And to my knowledge, we haven't done that before, that aspect of it before.
No, this is something new. The commission has typically worked out the strategic plan on its own, but it was a new idea in looking at how Library Arts and Culture Commission had done their strategic plan and some of the public engagement. And it would be a nice way to provide some public engagement and give the community a chance to learn more about the Commission on the Status of Women and the work you do.
Okay.
And to get that feedback from them.
Okay. Is it possible to have the language read, instead of the CSW will hold, will consider holding, in case we decide that it's not the right course to go, or we've done this, we're ready to present the strategic plan, and we don't, for whatever reason, think that a public meeting is necessary?
Certainly. That is at the direction of the commission.
Okay. Because that just says will, and so it's a mandate, and I just think it's possible that we could have further discussion and decide when we're proposing, making changes to strategic plan, that may or may not be something we want to do this time around. So that would be my only comment. Thank you.
And just to clarify, we can still note and file the report with that feedback.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to pass this as alternative 1, note and file.
I will second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brusalian,
Yes.
Commissioner Kajayan, Commissioner Perrin,
Yes.
Commissioner Semerjian, Chair Lambalot.
Yes.
The motion is passed.
Okay, next item on the agenda, please.
Is 7. Next agenda item is 7, reports, information only. 7A, legislative update.
Chair Lambalot, members of the commission, just a brief update on where the commission is at with the bills that it has recommended to City Council. So the state legislature did reconvene on January 3rd of this year for the second year of the 2-year session and had until February 18th to introduce new legislation, as has been reported to you in the past. The state legislature had until May 27 to pass bills out of their House of Origin and recently reconvened on August 1st after summer recess. They have until the end of this month, August 31st, to pass all bills to the governor for his consideration, and the governor will have until September 30th to either veto or sign bills into law. City Council received its most recent legislative update in July and approved the list of bills recommended by the Commission. Council actually added one bill to the list, Senate Bill 974, authored by Senator Anthony Portantino, which would expand health care coverage for follow-up mammograms. That one is very similar to Assemblymember Friedman's bill. Similarly, one is on one end of the screening and on the pre-diagnosis, and the other one's the post-diagnosis side. This bill is currently in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. The 6 bills that make up the bills recommended by the Commission are all still currently active and making their way through the state legislature. And the next legislative update to the Commission in November will contain a final disposition of the bills that passed to the governor for his consideration. And ultimately, if they died or if they become law. That concludes the report. If you have any questions at all, happy to answer them.
Any questions?
No.
Thank you, Ms. Powers. Next item on the agenda is staff comment, or commissioner comment and staff comments. Okay. Does anyone have any comments or updates on anything that they wanted to speak to?
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes.
So when we had our last meeting in May, we had a conflict with scheduling, and we had to move the CSW meeting up to 4 o'clock. And if I'm not mistaken, when we did that, I think we were all okay with a 4 o'clock hour versus a 5:30 hour. And I was wondering if the other commissioners were okay with this, and if anyone wants to possibly second that today.
How would we deal with that procedurally? Does it have to be an agenda item?
It would be, yes. Chair Lambalot, members of the commission, so that would be, I believe, what Commissioner Brusalian is requesting at this time is consideration of that at a future meeting. So that could come at your next meeting.
At 4 o'clock or 4:30, was it?
I think it was at 4 o'clock, but I mean.
How does that work for the student ex officios?
I mean, personally, for me, it works. There is no scheduling conflict.
I do athletics, but I'm sure that I can always work around it to figure out meetings and adjustments to my schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Does that work for the other commissioners?
It does for me.
And it does for me, too. So are we able to put that on the agenda for next meeting, Ms. Powers?
Certainly. There is a chance, I'm trying to look right now to see if, I cannot recall if the time is set by ordinance as well, or if it's just not. If it is, then it would also.
It's not. I just checked. It's set by the members by resolution. So
Thank you.
yes, with a motion and a second, you can bring that back and decide on it.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if
And does that work for the staff as well? I believe you said that it does.
That certainly works for staff.
Yeah. And so if this does go on the agenda, we would have another 5:30 meeting in November, and then in February, it would start at 4 o'clock.
correct?
Yes, should the commission pass a resolution to establish the new times? Yes, certainly that would. And then in the future, if something happens and there's any sort of issue,
Sure.
by concurrence of the commission, that can certainly be adjusted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brusilian, for bringing that up.
Does it sound like there's a second to have this come back at a future meeting?
I'm sorry.
Is I apologize, a second to have this come back to the next meeting?
I will second.
Thank you.
Do we need a roll call? No, it's just a comment. Okay.
No, thank you.
Any other comments about anything? Does staff have any comments, questions?
No, thank you.
All right, then I believe I just need a motion of adjournment
Yes,
at this
please.
point.
I motion to adjourn.
I second.
The meeting is adjourned at 6:57.
Thank you very much.